Hello and welcome to another Not Chilly podcast. Today, Josh and I will be talking about the film Solo, which is obviously part of the Star Wars franchise. This is a bit of an example of how the Star Wars series we're producing will sound, and the way in which we'll be talking about such an important series. So, let's do this. Thanks very much for being a part of this.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Although we're not having anything to do with the sequel trilogy today.
Yeah, were we just singing the sequel trilogy,
Yeah, it was from the sequel trilogy.
Oh man. Do I remember any of the themes from the thing we just listened to?
It was the theme from when she's walking up to...
Oh yes, do you mean from the first one? The first new one?
The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
There has been an awakening.
That was one of my favourite moments in that one, I think. Are we doing this?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we're talking about Solo.
A Star Wars story.
Which is funny because you think, why do they need to say that?
Mostly directed by Ron Howard.
Well, what do you mean by mostly directed by Ron Howard?
The guys who made 21 and 22 Jump Street and wrote the Lego movie.
Mm.
Yeah, that's who directed it initially, and then they reshot 90% of the film after they fired him.
Really? Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Apparently the tone they went for was totally off. Not something that Lucasfilm could accept.
Right.
But to be perfectly honest, look, no one will ever know because, there's no... I can't believe that will ever escape if the footage even still exists. Their names came up at the end as executive producers, but they did not leave, in a nice way.
Shit.
But no one really knows what happened. So, outside of...
Speculate.
I don't think that... I think what Kathleen Kennedy was the truth was, that they didn't like their tone. That's what I think is the truth. Regardless of whether that means it was a better film before or whatever, I totally believe that.
Conspiracy.
It doesn't sound suspicious to me at all. Whereas, with Rogue One, they reshot most of the film and or a substantial portion of it, and it was a bit sort of we really liked him, but we had to tweak a little bit, and then they put him on the road to do all the publicity and stuff. That's weird,
right?
Because I think he was locked out of the edit and all sorts of stuff. Whereas this one, they got Ron Howard to come in and went, you know what, let's redo stuff.
Let's hit the reset button.
Yeah. Can you imagine the money?
I can, actually. Here we go. What do you think? Because you're pretty good at guessing this shit. What do you think?
I think I'm going to be way off on the budget. I reckon it's 150 mil. It's probably more than that.
Double it.
Fuck off. 300.
Just under, obviously. 275 million.
Yeah, that's insane.
Think about how much it made.
I think it made 480 million.
Oh, 380. 392.9.
Okay. I think that's off, but yes, okay.
It could be.
I'm pretty sure it was just under 500 million. They're expecting somewhere between 850 to $1 billion. Which would be reasonable for a Star Wars, but yeah. And
reasonable for a big Star Wars?
No, reasonable for any Star Wars. Rogue made somewhere between 800 and $1 billion.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
But which is by the way, any other organization that goes in, or any other brand or whatever, outside of these sort of Marvel things and all this stuff, outside of DC, Marvel, all that type of stuff, if you go in spending $275 million and you come out having made $480 million, you've got a lot of very, very, very happy investors,
right?
But
how much do you think it cost to make that one
Rogue,
A Force Awakens?
Oh,
this is just a fun little game I like to play. Only because I have the
I
answer.
thought it was somewhere between 250 and 300.
Oh, nice. 306 was the budget gross, and net it was 258.6. That's what it says here.
Who nets and grosses a budget?
I know, that's what it says here. What do you think box office?
Wasn't it?
This is fun. For me. And no one else who's listening is going to enjoy this as much as I am.
I've forgotten what it was, because the previous record was Avatar at 2 billion, and then I think that it was 1.6 or something.
Man, the crazy thing is $2.068 billion.
I thought it was over Avatar.
Yeah. Anyway, that's obviously beside the point. Like, that's, that was a different film. That was A Force Awakens. So, let's talk about this. What do you think, first of all?
Well, it's the third time I've seen it, twice at cinema, once on.
So you hated it?
So ever since Revenge of the Sith, no, I think from episode 2, actually. I'm pretty sure I saw episode 2 at a midnight thing. Mm-hmm. I definitely saw Revenge of the Sith at a midnight thing, but I'm pretty sure I saw episode 2. And then, ever sort of since they announced that they'd be doing more Star Wars film, it's like, I gotta see it at 1 minute past whenever the hell it comes out.
Yeah.
So even for Solo.
Yeah, you did see it midnight launch, wasn't it?
Yeah. Kind of just because, not even out of extreme enthusiasm. I was like, all right, yeah, fuck it. I'm sure that the effects will be cool, and the Millennium Falcon set looks like it's going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because the one thing that didn't cross my mind when they announced the film, that didn't hit me until the trailer, was like they went in, they had this one shot inside the Falcon in the trailer without people or anything in it. And I went, oh my God, yeah, totally clean, fresh Millennium Falcon. That's so cool. And as much as that's just sort of, like nostalgia prodding.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
That I just wanted to say, I got in there, watched a movie, and aside from a few bits that made me cringe, I went, okay, did anyone else here love that? I loved that. That was fun as hell. It was, I thoroughly enjoyed it at the cinema the first time. Then I went to see it at the cinema a second time, and I really liked it again. And yeah, I think it's one of the things I like about it is that, having watched particularly the original trilogy to death, I like finding things like Clone Wars, for instance, that I can watch that are Star Wars, and I can still connect watching Star Wars without further degrading the tape, so to speak, of things like the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a mistake I don't want to make with the sequel trilogy. I want to watch them every so often. And that was a mistake I never made with The Lord of the Rings, for instance. I didn't watch them to death. I watched them, it was like a big-ass time commitment. And so I think I've seen The Lord of the Rings, like, at the cinema a few times on VHS, a couple of times on DVD, and once on Blu-ray, and that's it. I think I've seen the Peter Jackson trilogy like 5 times.
Right.
And I've watched all the special features, all that kind of stuff, but that's the relationship that, as I got older, I wanted to have with Star Wars, and have always been sad that particularly Empire Strikes Back I've just watched to death. And so this is one of those films I go, wow, I could watch this 100 times and like not really get bored by it. And still have it be a Star Wars story that entertains me, but not sort of wear out the ones that are more meaningful to me, I guess. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and the actor's name is just totally slipped my mind.
Oh, I've got it here. Don't worry. I got it here. Starring Alan. Oh my God. Rich Reich?
It's Alden, isn't it?
Alden. Oh wow, man, that's dyslexia at its finest.
I can't. It's too small. I can't remember his last name.
A-L-D. You're right, Alden. E-H-R-E-N-R-E-I-C-H.
Adric or something.
Alden.
But he killed it, man.
Yeah, I thought you kind of briefed me on him, actually. I remember we talked about this maybe ages ago, and I was like, how do they do Han? Because I wanted your opinion on it, because I'd heard other people be like, yeah, it sucked, Han wasn't the written, blah, 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 all that crap. And I'm like, I'm fine with that, people hating on it, if it sucks, you know? I remember you telling me that he's not what you expect, and you got to kind of warm into him, but once you do, it's the right fit.
Yeah, once the ball is rolling, totally from beginning to end, it just feels like he's Han. That's it.
Yeah.
And the main sort of criticism that people said about the Han character of this film is they related it to that Han shot first crap. This frankly never bothered me.
Of course, and that's obviously a reference at the end. Yeah. By the way, spoilers, everyone. Watch the movie.
So people were upset because the whole point was they wanted to see the Han Solo that we know at the start of A New Hope, who's, it takes him until the end of the film, and then he starts behaving heroically and selflessly. And then in Empire Strikes Back, he feels crushed into a thing of, look, I've got to go return these debts. That's what I have to do right now. I've got a bounty on my head. And people wanted that Han. And the thing that they forget is that, and this is actually something like in a project I've been helping out on lately, one of the mistakes that we made early on was we needed a character who's unlikable in a lot of ways, who then is sort of quasi-redeemed.
Yep.
But the problem is, for someone to be redeemed, they have to have had the good inside them in the first place. And so what you're seeing in this film is the good guy Han, who by the end of this film is a bit jaded and cynical. And in the next film, which is genuinely what they wanted to do, I think they wanted to make 3 of these, that's in those 2 films, that's what you would have seen. You would have seen him
be destroyed,
him become more like a smuggler.
Yeah, 30-year-old Han.
Exactly. So
I liked it because I thought that the way I saw it in this particular film was that he had a youth to him. He was naive. He was making mistakes in the same way that Han would normally make mistakes, but he also had there was just a spring in his step. It was less this kind of bitter, I've got to get this stuff done. Come on, guys, let's do it. Oh, my God, if we have to. But it's more like, no, let's do it. I can make it. We can achieve this, know? And I felt like that was a really cool beginning to that veteran that we see in the first.
In A New Hope, when he saves Luke.
That's him bringing himself back to that.
That's exactly what that is. It's kind of like, why does he do it? Well, because they got to him. They got to his better nature.
Yeah.
But he didn't have one. So, that's the thing that this film shows, is that, no, he started out with, he was a nice person. He was a good person. He was the good guy.
Yeah.
And,
but always kind of, to a certain degree, self-serving, because that's where he's brought up from, but he always wanted to pull people out with him.
And that, you see the selflessness in this film, right? He wants to save many to go and save Kira. At the end of the film, he's willing to give up the entire stake so that he's not a part of the bad stuff that will come out of the deal. So he has those things inside of him, but by the very end, she betrays him. The guy who was telling him the whole time, don't trust anyone, don't trust anyone, don't trust anyone, proves that to be true. Don't trust anyone.
Yeah, definitely.
And he ends up in this situation where he's going to go and get involved with a gangster on Tatooine. You don't get involved in that stuff if you're not willing to do some dodgy shit. And I would like to see, a Star Wars story, Solo 2 and 3. I'd love to see that be him getting deeper and deeper, further and further away from who he is in this film.
And then just at the end of the film be him in the bar in Tatooine.
Not even.
Starting that conversation. That'd be kind of, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, a bit cheesy.
But... Oh, totally cheesy. But that's what this film is a little bit. It's catering to that cheese.
Yeah.
But it's done in a way that...
That's the only stuff that irritates me, I guess, is the references stuff. Not... A lot of people were irritated about the Kessel Run being in it. That part didn't bother me at all. I didn't... Because that's where
it was a throwaway line. Like they said that they referenced it twice. One was where Donald Glover's character Lando was like, you can only do this in 20 is the fastest ever been done, and then he says, hey guys, I did it in 12, and that's basically the end of it, right? I don't care.
Well, but I mean, the whole like a good third of the film is the Kessel Run itself, but where it comes from is a throwaway line in A New Hope where Han's like, hey, it did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
Yeah,
and he says it in this way that it's like, how have you not heard of the Millennium Falcon? Everyone's heard of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about me. And the thing that everyone knows about him is, that he'll drop his shipment at the first sight of of an Imperial cruiser, according to Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
So I think that it's one of those things where people always wanted to have it in their imagination, sort of in the same way that people always wanted it in their imagination how Anakin Skywalker gets burned.
Yeah.
And that was shown, and in my opinion, very effectively in Episode 3. I love that movie.
Which we'll get to later on in a series that we're about to start soon.
Yeah. Which this is not a part of, I would say.
No, that's actually something we should make clear now, is that because these are kind of separate, this and Rogue One, whether to say we'll watch it again, I wouldn't mind to, because I love talking about kind of what made me not love that film.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't destroy it. I would just...
No. It's a drib and drab film for me. It's a film of, like, you kind of wish you could reshoot a couple of scenes, re-edit it here and there, and you'd have a great Star Wars film.
Oh, yeah.
A great Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Whereas it's so clunky to me. It feels the way that it was produced. It feels like it was just not enough, reshot just not enough.
And that's whereas, go again.
Whereas this one was reshot enough to make a coherent, beginning to end, straightforward film. Whereas that film just feels really jumpy to me.
Well, of course, we'll work that into like the next one. I don't want to, I'd love to let that breathe, because this is a whole different, film, and something that like is actually really kind of cool. But the reference being, or the important point to take out of this is that this is not a part of that series. This is almost like a appetizer to the series, because to me, talking to you about this is obviously, you have a lot of love for Star Wars films in a way that isn't on either end of the spectrum of like, oh my god, it's the best thing that's ever happened, and I hate this is just the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, you're kind of a good middle between it all, but with a lot of knowledge. So
I'm fairly one-sided about Star Wars, but I'm willing to critique it.
Yeah.
But I just don't participate in the anymore anyway. I used to really hate the prequels and say they were a piece of shit, and now I think they're really it's one of my favorite stories ever. Relatively poorly told for the first 2/3.
So if you like this particular episode, wait, and then
wait until that. Because I get more passionate about the Skywalker legacy. That's
of course. Even I would, but I'm not a big fan.
That's most of a lifetime of passion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But back to Han. So the character himself, so he does have that kind of childish charm. He does have that kind of immaturity about him, less jaded. And you're right, it would be nice to see 3 films of this development that happens. I like the idea of it tying into the first time we see Luke enter the room, but I understand why that could be a bit too cheesy. But for the fans, I think that'll be something they do. Maybe even like post-credits kind of scene where he's like...
Don't ever suggest post-credits for Star Wars.
Oh, is that never happened?
That's not a thing.
That's not a thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
When that circular dissolve comes in, that's it, my friend. It's the end of the film. That's it.
Wow, man, I wasted a lot of time watching credits.
No, you didn't.
That's right.
There's a lot of people who work very hard to get their names there.
There you go. No, and if my name was on those credits, I would have been like, "Ooh,
that's me.
That's me."
Oh my god.
So would my mom.
To have
have
your name as a runner in Star Wars, like have your name as anything on the Star Wars credits would just be like chill.
Just be like chill?
No, like a chill up your spine. Like,
oh, right. I was gonna say like just relaxed, like
goosebumps. It would be so like
But so yeah, this particular character, it's got a lot of potential, but you don't think they're gonna make another one?
No one knows at the moment. All standalone films are currently on hold. And they're pushing the TV show at the moment, so no one really knows. Which I'm very excited about, and they've released.
Oh, the TV show, yes.
Shot. Yeah.
So,
Mandalorian.
So what do you think about Lando?
Yeah, so I feel that he tried to copy a bit too much some of Billy D. Williams' speaking mannerisms, but outside of that, yeah, he nailed it. Whereas, funnily, I thought it would be the other way around. I thought that he would quite effortlessly be Lando, whereas and Han would be kind of a wet fish, and it was, to me, not the reverse, like he wasn't a wet fish, but Han, to me, really felt like Han Solo, whereas Lando felt
a little bit someone
only in
playing
parts,
Lando?
only in little bits.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I liked his arc though. We all knew that he was a bit of a hustler. Like, certainly that was.
Oh, he's a dick.
Yeah, and he's a cheat.
Yeah,
and he embellishes his own stories, and it's nice to kind of see that kind of side of him. But it's nice to see that in that same way that Han is also an immature young kid, essentially, so is Lando in his own way. He's a bit egotistical. You can see that when he sees him again, when Han sees Lando later on in the thing, like they're both like, "Oh, you made something of yourself. Good on you. How's my ship?" You know. So I kind of liked these immature mistake making characters that like take risks, that do stuff that's like,
I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but I accept it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the moments like that are very, very good, and it's kind of like, why is his ship locked up? Why is it chained to the ground? Like, he's a fucking liar. It's
right.
Bullshit. But as you said, he's a hustler, and I think that aspect is done really well. I just think that just some voice stuff, but it's tiny stuff, and the more I watch it, the less I'm gonna care.
Yeah,
he'll become more in that thing. It's just, it's that thing of going, let's redo anything, like, as a character. Let's do something. You're always going to get compared. Or when you play a historical character, people are going to scrutinize the hell out of you. And it's funny because the more you try to be like that person and sound like that person, the more they'll tend to scrutinize you.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the more that you try to pull off the essence of that person, the more believable I find it is. And
it's like that robot theory, the one that's like, trying to get robots to look like humans or behave like humans, or like AI to behave like humans
the uncanny valley.
There you go. That's the one. And I feel like it kind of resonates in that way. If you kind of just have the essence.
Clone troopers in Star Wars. Get me out! Get me out!
What is that all about?
That's in. It gets explained that way in. Oh no, that's right. That's a step before. Yeah, it's Tom Hanks in Polar Express in 30 Rock. It's a 30 Rock gag.
Oh my god, really?
Where they're talking about making the porn video game, and he's explaining, the guy with the hat, whatever his name is, he's explaining to him why it can't be done. And he's like showing the uncanny valley. He's like,
yeah.
He's like, down here is whatever, Mickey Mouse or something. I can't remember. And he goes, yeah, I like that. That's cool. And up here is this. And he's like, oh yeah, up here is the Clone Wars in the Star Wars prequels. Oh yeah, I guess that's all right. He goes, and here's Tom Hanks in the Polar Express. Get me out! He's in the uncanny valley. That was a terrible, terrible recreation of a great joke from 30 Rock. So
that's fine. Just watch it.
Gag. But yes, that's why he's saying a porn video game can't work, because it's like in the uncanny valley. Yeah, totally. It's one of those things where, yes, you focus so much on it being so close as opposed to trying to do its own thing very well. Whereas Han Solo in this, to me, really pulled off his own version of Han Solo really, really well. It never felt to me like he was trying to act like Han Solo. To me, act like Harrison Ford, rather.
What about Kira? What do you think?
I thought she was a great character.
Is she in reference in any other things? Do you have any?
Not to my knowledge, but I haven't watched the last. So season 5 of Clone Wars is the last season, and then there's like a mash of episodes that were the last season, like were meant to be in the last season, but they're not like a full story.
Yeah,
and that's season 6. I'm using inverted commas, like quotation marks rather. Like that's season 6. So I haven't seen season 5. I'm in the like 2/3 of the way through season 4 at the moment. So I'm not sure. But like Darth Maul is back and all that stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I know that he, like you were saying, he kind of comes up in Clone Wars, and that's the link here.
Yeah, as a gangster, Crimson Dawn, which is like what this whole film is about, doing a job for Crimson Dawn.
Now, there's a Crimson Dawn come up in Phantom Menace?
No.
No. Okay. So it's just...
I think they've been around for like ages, though, in comics and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure. Definitely the novels.
Super interesting, because it's like that was an interesting little throw in the end. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was too cheesy or weird.
It was way too much for me.
Oh, really?
I don't know why. The two things that bugged me, and this is getting Star Wars nerdy, is that one of the rules that John Williams has laid down in terms of music is you only use a theme if it's relevant. So if it's not relevant, don't use it. So they have Darth Maul sitting there, and he has his cloak on, and then he pulls the cloak back, and I'm like, yeah, we could see who it was. No need to do that. And then he grabs his lightsaber.
Yeah.
Why are you grabbing the lightsaber? Because we're reminding you that this is Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And then the music goes, bum, 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 which is from Duel of Fates, which is from his fight in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But the Duel of Fates refers to two very specific moments in the entire history of Star Wars. It only plays one at a time, which is in episode 2. And it's several notes. See, this is the level. This is what happens when you open the box, Bill.
That's fine, man. Opened.
As Anakin Skywalker is trying to find his mum on Tatooine in episode 2, and he gets on a speeder going away from his aunt and uncle's place. Sorry, not from his aunt and uncle's place, from Luke's foster parents.
Okay.
He's on this speeder and he's going to find his mum. And as he's riding along the desert, it goes, and then it goes away again and goes back to this theme. But it's this thing of like the rising tension, because with every action that he does, he's dueling with the fate of the galaxy. That's the thing. So in Star Wars Episode 1, it's like the result of this duel will cause an outcome that will affect the entire galaxy. It then plays a few notes of him struggling with his own soul in episode 2, and then in episode 3 it plays as kind of like a medley so Duel of Fates plays with Yoda and Palpatine fighting each other. And it cuts from that to the Battle of Heroes, which is between Anakin and Obi-Wan. So you've got these, it's very precise when this shit is used. You know, you don't just sort of throw away, like, you know, just throw the Force theme in there. Just do this. You don't do that.
Yeah,
there was no Duel of Fates happening in this moment. He's not a Sith really anymore. He's just a fucking gangster. And the Sith have control of the galaxy in this film, you know.
Yeah.
If he wanted to be back, he doesn't want to do that. He's just a gangster. So that was over the top to me. I think he should have just kept his cloak on and then been like, yeah, all right, so you better come to me. All right, see you soon. And it would have gone away. And then in the next movie, do something with him. Because you just didn't have to go, we're flagging it.
Yeah.
Hello. That was too much.
Okay.
And that's the only complaint I have with this film, is that they do that a few times. And some of them bother me and some of them don't. Like Han Solo.
I didn't mind that too much. It was stupid, but
which is good. I'm happy that it didn't like bug you.
Yeah, because for me it's like
me.
Sometimes when people overplay, like, oh my god, how did he get his name? It's like, I never thought how he got his name. I just assumed that was his name.
Yeah, me too.
And then they're just like, oh, Han Solo is your thing. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, moving on.
But the thing that annoys me about it is that Han Solo, like Millennium Falcon, what the fuck does that mean? Like a Millennium bird, a bird that's 1,000.
It's just the name of a ship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, things are called weird and silly things in Star Wars, and now I know that he's not called Han Solo because that sounds cool. He's called Han Solo because the word solo literally means one.
Alone. Yeah,
and like, that's annoying to me. You know, it should have just been a goofy 70s, you know, space fantasy name. That's all. Like, you know, that's what annoys me.
I guess what you're annoyed about is that it just didn't, to be honest, didn't even need to be said.
It didn't need to be said, and one of the things I've loved about Star Wars is that, for example, when someone speaks Elvish in Lord of the Rings.
This is what you love about Star Wars. Sorry, continue.
That is a language. They are saying that. Anything that anyone says in Lord of the Rings actually has a dictionary thing that corresponds to it and it can be translated. It's gibberish in Star Wars, and that's the fun of it. Like, it's, you know, when Chewie is saying stuff, you can't go through and go, when he goes, you can actually find that that's consistent through all the... That's not... It doesn't work that way. Yeah. And so for them to make that a literal thing was just... It just annoyed me. Because I wanted it to just be a stupid name.
Yeah, okay.
Just a funny name. Han Solo.
That's totally fair. I don't think that there's anything wrong with, like, as a not as big fan of Star Wars as you are when it comes to those kind of details, I was like, sweet, moving on. Like, I just, like, I wasn't wowed by it. I wasn't blown away by it. I liked, speaking of those kind of moments, I like how he gets the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's, cool. Yeah.
People complained about it, though. People said, it was, you know, like, lackluster, or there was something about that people didn't like. And I'm like, I loved it. I thought it was...
How he wins it in a game of Sabacc, which has been the thing for like 30 years.
Yeah, but you'd think it'd be more epic. But it wasn't. It was just that he knew that he was, you know... But you see that dynamic when you see them as adults, you know, when they see each other. It's like, oh, you won, but...
She's still my ship. Yeah, it's... I really love how they did as well, because I sat there in the movie going, oh, what, he wins? He gets the Falcon already? You know? And then he doesn't. He doesn't get it.
Yeah, that's right.
He loses because Lando cheats, and then he gets it at the very end of the film, and I really liked that. I liked that it wasn't... I love that he was in this ship that wasn't his, that he knew was rightfully his, because he won the game, technically. Not technically, he won the game, but Lando cheated. He knew it was rightfully his, but also he just felt a connection to this ship. He, as soon as he sat down, the way that he flew it was beautifully. You know, and how they go into the maelstrom, and he manages to weave through all of the sort of like bits of ice and rock.
And I like how they explained his ability to fly that ship. I thought that was like, oh my god, yeah, he picks up the ship, he's like, wee! And he's like, oh, he's somehow really, really good at it. But in reality, it's like, oh, it's because his dad built these damn things. He knows where all the switches are. He's probably read 1,001 like manuals on it. I thought that was kind of cool too.
And also he started his like training with the Imperial Starfleet, which had also always been a thing.
And that's kind of my point about this film, which I really liked. I like when people don't make too much of a fuss about references and like connecting those dots, where it kind of feels... It's like when you watch... I know this is going to be a weird kind of connection here, but it's like when you watch The Naked Gun, right? Hey man, at least I'm not talking Elvish. It's when you watch The Naked Gun, the funnier moments to me are not... are so understated throughout that whole, like, the whole spiels. It's either something that happens in the distant background, or a joke that's like would have cost so much money to do, but is literally just like cut away in like a microsecond. Like you only see it for like a flash, you know? And I feel like there's the same thing with this. It's like one of my favorite moments in A Force Awakens is when they're running to get to the ship. And the thing is like, oh my god, we'll take this ship. It's like, oh, that one will do. And they pan to the Millennium Falcon and they run into it.
They're under a sheet.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's like, I mean, obviously that becomes like a bit of a staple. Like, you know, all the references in this become a bit of a main theme, but they're not glorified. It's not like, oh my god, look at this ship. This ship's amazing. I love it. This is great. Do you know what the Millennium Falcon is? It's like, oh, there it is. That's my ship. All right, let's go. Like, I like the...
And the shots do it for you as well. You know, when the way that they have that beautiful aerial shot of it as they come up over it, as he sees it for the first time, and then he walks over to it and he stands underneath it, and there's the sun clouded by all this grotty, you know, cloud, and he's looking up at the cockpit, and he's just, you know, it's how in like older films you would have the man see the woman for the first time. You know, it's like beautifully lit, slow motion hair.
Which leads me to my next point. Robot sex. Right?
Yeah. A lot of people are pissed about that.
Why?
Because everyone hates Star Wars and then turns around and says, give me more Star Wars. I hate this.
That's so true.
It's
that was cool. I thought, you know what? I love this.
Who gives a shit? He's a fucking weird guy.
Yeah, and also, like, why not come up with this idea that, like, robots have become so advanced? I mean, we see that throughout the Star Wars series of these robots that are hyper-intelligent and like, pretty much real people. And they live like, you talk to them like real people, they behave like real people. Why can't they be people? I think it's fantastic, you know?
If you can develop any type of relationship with a droid, then you can obviously fall in love with one.
Let alone not even just to develop, like, because there's a difference between developing a relationship with an inanimate object and having that inanimate object tell you like an idea that they have.
Yeah.
That for me is what makes it different. That's always been around in the Star Wars universe. Like Luke's relationship with R2-D2 it's exactly that. He doesn't just go, hey, R2-D2, get me coffee. It's like there's a harmony that exists between them.
Yeah, because he respects them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as much as... And it's funny because the only person who doesn't really is Han. He really finds them annoying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He hates C-3PO.
Oh, yeah, who doesn't?
Whereas, and yet, despite the fact that C-3PO is really annoying, Chewie lovingly
Protects him.
puts him back together in Empire Strikes Back. So there's that thing of that acknowledgement, whereas... And they do make a point of that through the original trilogy, where the way that they think of droids and react with droids, you know, the way the Jawas treat droids is at odds with how we feel. You know, we go, oh, I feel sorry for them. They're all in here and they're being sold off and having restraining bolts put on them. And then, you know, by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, they're being enslaved and tortured in Jabba's castle. And that's the type of thing that we're used to seeing, this idea that there is a lot more that can be explored in terms of droids and how we feel about them. And, you know, whereas Luke or Anakin develops a more intimate relationship with R2, with, say, Obi-Wan, he sees droids in a lot more of a kind of mechanical
functional
role. They're functional. He gets upset when R4 gets killed in episode 3, but you know, at the end of episode 3, they have 3PO and R2's memories wiped. And that's why they don't remember the prequels. So it's really handy. So yeah, it didn't bug me. I liked her a lot, which is funny because the droid in Rogue One really gave me the shits. He
really
hated that fucking
I loved him. I thought it was great.
I
thought he was such a, like, that was probably my most enjoyable part of that film.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
because
that would be like the starfight at the end. That was sweet.
Starfight at the end.
The starship battle at the end.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite part.
No, I thought that robot was awesome. I just like the idea that, like... I like the idea that they take something that, you know, we all, no, maybe not even we all ponder, but it kind of throws you in there a bit, like that a robot can have love with a human being and that it can actually process that idea. And they obviously play with that right at the beginning of the film. It's like, this is my robot, you know, and I'm not even sure they said she, but it seems to imply. She, yeah. There you go. And already, straight the first time you meet her, it's this, like, robot that has feelings about, you know, like, don't be enslaved, get out of your system. I think there's something really human and beautiful about that relationship, and almost Lando's and the robot's relationship is like they make almost a joke of it with Kira. I can't pronounce it because it's like it's just Kira because it's spelled QI, weird letters. Anyway, and they have that moment there in the what was her name? What's her name? L4? L2?
Oh, yeah. Funnily, I think she's in the L337.
Okay. L, because I'm going to forget that. L, and Kira have that conversation about, like, their love interests and stuff like that. And I think that's, like, that was funny until Lando reacts to L dying.
Oh, yeah.
Or getting, like, hit really hard. And that was just like, oh, that robot wasn't just bullshitting. And
yeah, because it sounded like it was a delusional thing that the droid had made up. And then you go, oh, wait, what?
That's right.
Okay.
And you realise that why Lando keeps her around. Not just for the navigational, but there's something about her.
Regardless of even if he, you know, whatever... He's a loner that flies around swindling people around the galaxy.
Yeah, weirder shit has happened.
No one else seems to be living on this ship. If anyone spends almost all their time with, like, something like that, like a droid in that universe, I mean,
it's
you're
like
going to develop
Hanks.
at least a friendship.
Tom Hanks with Castaway, right?
Yeah.
Wilson. Yeah,
exactly. She's Wilson. Yeah, so I think, I really, really liked her and her little droid rebellion, and
I thought it was
that
great.
she triggers off and it causes this big kerfuffle on Kessel. I really love that. And one thing particularly about the Kessel Run section, man, I just wish I could have been in the room when the DOP was talking about how he wants to light this film.
Right?
It's dark.
Yeah, this is an
really
interesting
moody.
point. You were just, right before we started recording, you were like literally, you had the Blu-ray 1080p one and you had the 4K HDR one,
yes.
and you're flicking between them and making a comparison. And I'll go with what I saw and what I noticed, because you've got a lot more an eye for it compared to me. And coming from an the word isn't uneducated, but unexcited about visual difference between the two. I certainly noticed that the 1080p was brighter in color and everything.
Big time, yeah.
Almost like almost cartoony in brightness. Like, and it almost seemed a little hyper real, whilst the 4K one was actually the opposite, which I always thought would be the other way around. I thought that you would have less color in a smaller resolution and more.
Well, no, so it had more brightness in the It's not really about brightness. There were way more colors in the HDR one.
That's interesting. It doesn't feel that way.
It doesn't feel that way because and what I did notice was having watched it twice at the cinema, it really sunk into me. The look of this film was so. I'd say it was the most distinct look for a Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back, which was very, very beautifully lit and extremely shot in a way that had. This was shot in a way that you sort of go, man, they would have to reshoot that if they wanted it different.
Yeah.
But because they shot a HDR, they had so much dynamic range in the camera that in post they just went, okay, for the standard definition copies, let's bump everything up.
Do you know why they would have done that? Well, what's your theory? Obviously not.
Oh, it's not the reason that they did that was because they cannot emulate that look on a standard definition, standard dynamic.
As in, it
range.
would have just looked saturated, like desaturated.
It would have, it just would have looked flat.
Okay.
It would have looked really flat. If you've ever seen what a HDR image looks like on a non-HDR panel, it looks like roughly the image you're looking at with a shitload of grey, because tons of the colors just go way outside what the panel is capable of.
Oh.
So despite it being darker, one of the things it would be is, yes, it was darker, but where it was bright, it was bright and well lit in exactly the way that they wanted it to be. So that was a really interesting part, but particularly during the Kessel Run sequence where, God, that shot of the backlit Star Destroyer.
Oh, that was
in the
so
lightning.
good.
It's like, what is that?
Can I just say the special effects, the VFX and that, just exceptional. Like, I don't know. I mean, I could be, because I haven't seen the new movies recently. It feels like they were better. It feels like there was something about the look of them that was just like, it blew me away. And there was remember that moment when it was the Millennium Falcon kind of flies over the desert and kind of does like a weird move and lands.
Yep.
And I was like, that's got to be a helicopter shot combined with some CGI. And you're like, no, I think that's all CGI. And that mind.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that shot is all CGI.
I mean, regardless if
it's either that or a helicopter shot that was maneuvered that way, but the way that it moves around would be...
It's a pretty aggressive helicopter flight.
Yeah, it's pretty full on, but also, I don't know, there was something about the image that looked like the landscape was artificial.
And if it was, or if it wasn't, it was both amazing. Like, if it wasn't, that was amazing compositing of CGI in that kind of environment. If it was, it's like a brilliant CGI, complete CGI composite. I was like, and throughout the film, I was like blown away. Like the moment with the what do they call this? Not a Star Destroyer. It's a blockade something.
That's a Star Destroyer. Yeah.
That's what a Star Destroyer is. Okay, so that moment, I was like, because they use that word blockade, and I was like,
it's a blockade.
And I'm but yes, that is exactly what that looks like it's doing. There's no way I'm getting past that. There's a huge blockade in front of me. It was amazing. Blew my mind away in that moment. I was like, oh, it's like a shark in murky water, and then as you get closer, you're like, what? Oh shit! That was amazing.
And the stuff that's really a lot easier to pull apart would have been Corellia, at the start of the film, where all the construction and stuff is happening. It just looked unbelievable.
Which one? Which part was that? Are you talking about?
His home planet.
Oh yes, yeah, that was a really cool. Like, I have a big fan. I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of like when you see different parts of the world to see real kind of personality in the art. I guess is the way to describe it. And it was just like that felt like a completely different place. It wasn't just another Star Wars thing copy pasted into a different looking ground. It was like, no, this has a different personality. They built these things a bit differently. They made this happen a bit. Like, it was really cool to see.
Because it's all, Corellia has featured a lot in various different things, but it's always interesting to see. I think it's been a couple of video games, but Imperial shipyards have been in a bunch of stuff. But to see on a cinema screen a Star Destroyer being put together is one of those things you just go, whoa, that's so cool. Of course, yes, people have to make these things.
That was another thing they did really well, is that throughout the film, the way that they chose to do exposition was pretty brief. It had to be done in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But my first experience of that was when, like you just described, when you're beginning of the film and you look up and it's a Star Destroyer, like, not being quite so built. It's like, it's almost done. And you're like, there we are. No one even mentions what time we are, when this is happening, what's going on right now. That was just like, yep, this is what the moment, and let's keep going with the story.
The only annoying moment of exposition is when he takes the thing to
whatever
Kira
the fuel
for the
is.
first time at the very beginning of the film, and he's like, "Oh, this should be more than enough to get it off Corellia and buy our own ship and blah 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 blah." It's like, cool, yep, thanks. I'm sure you couldn't have written that any other way.
Yeah, okay,
but
that's fair.
They wanted it out of the way in like a very short period of time, and it's not like we're talking about dumb screenwriters. We're talking about, people who wrote some of our favorite things, Indiana Jones, and
also they're obviously not just catering to us, right? They're catering to the younger audience that wants to see Han Solo.
And that was the only really sort of bit that went, yeah, okay. But at the same time, Star Wars has always been a clunky dialogue thing. It's one of Mark Hamill's favorite things to tease about Star Wars, is he always says, who the hell talks like this?
Yeah.
Oh, but I wanted to go to, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to go to, I wanted to go to Tachi Station and get some power converters. Like, who the fuck? What is it?
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and that's that thing. It's, it's for 10-year-olds.
Let's talk about Chewie.
Ah, yeah.
Right? What did you... No, I'll talk about what I think about Chewie, because I thought... I had like kind of 3 versions of feelings. Like a wave of like 3 emotions. It started with like... when he gets thrown into the pit and then we realize that it's Chewie that's coming out. I was like, holy shit, wait a second. I didn't think Chewie would have eaten human beings.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that.
Yeah, of course they did. You explained it pretty well. Then after you explained it and you're like, yeah, he was enslaved and, like, this is the only thing that they would have, like, fed him. They would have been forced to kind of be in that situation, let alone, the reason why you would have a Wookiee is for violence, so that, like, strength. To lift things or to destroy things, which was really cool. And then I just started to fall in love with him throughout the whole thing.
Because he's Chewie.
But he also had so much, like, I feel like he was such a side character in the original trilogy. Not that that's a problem, but he becomes so much more involved in this version. And I think that when you it's like when you have
and he didn't do anything in episode 8.
No, he really didn't. No, I hope that in the newest one he'll like totally like come back in his own way. But it's like, when you see it's not to that effect, because I'm obviously a big Pixar fanboy, which, by the way, we're going to do a series about Pixar films. But it was the moment, like, it's like when you watch WALL-E and you go, like, this is just a robot that goes, WALL-E, and that's it. And then but somehow you get this beautiful story arc, and you get this, like, like complex character. And then you see Chewie and you have that similar kind of reaction. You're like, oh, it's just Chewie, and he just goes, like, and that's all of it. And then suddenly he has...
the same sound person behind it makes no difference at all.
Yeah, right? And then, like, you see him, and he has obviously that relationship with the tribe. He has that really great moment in amongst that pit where even Chewie is making that decision, because he's not stupid. He's actually quite smart. And
that's why he gets so annoyed when he says, "You stupid Wookiee."
Yeah, that's
because
right.
Wookiees are that's part of why they're treated like shit, is that they're assumed to be incredibly dumb and simple.
Yeah, even though he was obviously jousting him at that point. Like, that was not the joke, but he was trying to rile him up by saying that you're a stupid Wookiee, and then smash.
Oh, no, earlier, when he was just annoyed at him. He was listen to me, you stupid Wookiee, and then he throws him.
Oh, right. My God. Maybe I missed that moment. But I thought that moment of the kind of like the fact that he connected with this Wookiee and got him, like, rather than just seeing this thing that he has to destroy and eat, essentially, to stay alive, it was this...
I speak a little.
Yeah, that's right. He has as soon as he tried to connect with him, it was great. I thought that was such a beautiful moment, because it's like, even the Wookiee's like, all right, he's not just pleading for his life because, screw it, this is my chance to get out. And that's the kind of moment that he has with Han at that point. And then obviously there's that moment with the tribe where he kind of has to help his people. And he's also like, just how he supports Han, which is funny because I was talking about how he's not a supportive character in this film, but how he supports and helps Han throughout that whole experience, and how he develops that bond with him. Because, I mean, he's a Wookiee, right? He's an uncontrollable, no one can see my quotation marks, beast. But they have a relationship. And they have this, like, screw you relationship. It's this funny kind of, like, love, but, push each other around. And you believe it.
Psychic.
Yeah, totally. And you understand why he becomes that. And obviously there's going to be some more adventures of that. I mean, he helped him free... I mean, again, necessarily help him free his tribesmen, but to a certain degree...
Well, he helped him free some Wookiees.
That's right. He gave away his weapon. It's one thing that he probably really needed, and the Wookiees are, like, not exactly... Like, they're capable, so he could have just gone in there with his fist, but he gave him...
They still have pretty advanced weaponry. Watch
That's
episode
true.
3 again.
Yeah, with the...
Battle of Kashyyyk.
Yeah.
There's, like, a whole battle on Kashyyyk.
Oh, there you go. I really need to see. That's kind of part of the reason why I want to do that Star Wars series, because I kind of want to rewatch it all. And
Chewbacca's in that too.
Oh, because he's 190 something years old. So
he's under 190 in that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's like 210 or in that sort of area by the time the original trilogy comes around. He's meant to be 200, I think.
So, what did you think
of
Chewie?
Yeah. Yeah, really well done. The only thing that, again, just sort of irritated me was like a reference flag, where he's like, and what's your name? Chewbacca. Well, we're going to have to come up with a nickname for that, because I'm not saying that every time. I'm like, can't you just naturally develop into calling him Chewie? Can't you just say it instead of going, I'm going to start calling him a Chewie?
You could totally, You could have had it so that they're on that train thing. And instead of saying Chewbacca, he's like Chewie, and Chewie's like, "Rrr," and then
he could have been like Chewbacca, and then he's like Chewie. Like, it could have just been a thing that it was a funny moment where he's just trying to say something quickly, and that's how it happens.
What do you love about Chewie?
Dialogue. I mean, he's always had a great sense of humor, and despite actually being quite a peaceful creature. Capable of playing into the legend of the Wookiee and being bad-tempered and all that sort of stuff to take advantage of it to make sense. Because, in A New Hope, the way that he's talked about and presented, that's why he pulls arms off of that guy.
Yeah, by accident, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, probably intentional, but also like, whoops.
It's, he's getting upset about, 3PO's getting upset about Chewbacca being in the game, and he says, don't argue with him. And he says, but he lost. Yeah, but like a Wookiee will pull your arms off. When he loses.
Oh, I see. And then you see him do it in this film, and you're like, it is possible.
I just told that story completely wrong, but the point is that Han warns 3PO that he'll pull arms off if he loses. Which
is also the irony of Chewie putting C-3PO together.
Yeah. He puts him back together. But it's one of those things that he's just one of those very lovable characters who is not really explored in any depth whatsoever at any point. He's just generally given a bit more stuff to do than episode 8, and he had tons to do in this one. And it was just a very natural fit. And the thing that's quite funny is the mannerisms of Chewie, the way he moves, and primarily the way the sound design is done, and the animatronics of the way his face moves. That's the stuff that is really core to who Chewie is, to what brings him to life. So I just imagine that they did a really solid job of those aspects, and that's why it works. Not just the writing. You know, I think that Chewie's the kind of character that kind of does a lot of work by way of simply who he is. I don't think there's only one bad Chewie moment in all of Star Wars, and
what's that?
That's in The Force Awakens when he doesn't hug Leia.
Oh.
He gets off the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo's died, and he walks past Leia, and Rey hugs Leia. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's right.
That's the only unforgivable moment in that film. And but in this film, they totally nail it. It's really well done. I expected his reveal to be a sort of a bigger deal. I expected it to be and revealing Chewbacca, here we go.
Yeah.
And make more of a deal of the life debt concept where it would be sort of stated. So yeah, the whole point is, you know, Chewbacca has a life debt with Han Solo because Han Solo saved him. And they tweak that here. They sort of go, maybe that's how Chewbacca might interpret it. But
it's also a friendship.
Yeah, it is by the end, definitely. But you
directly see it in that moment when right at the end, towards the end of the film, when they're escaping that place with where the slaves are all running through, and he has the other Wookiees like, "Hey, let's go," and he's like, "I'm good."
Yeah, I gotta.
And that's where you're like, oh, okay, that's it. You know, that's where
that is the point.
Yeah,
that's the point where it's friendship. And part of that is because, you know, Han didn't go, well, screw you, or no, you have to keep coming this way.
He's like, do it, go.
Yeah, he said, here, I think you'll need this weapon.
Yeah.
And then that badass Wookiee kicking ass scene.
Can I also say the choreography in this film was awesome. I mean, I might rewatch it and be able to pick at it a bit, but especially on that train sequence,
wonderful mixture in parts of like CGI, cinematography, and choreography. Like when she, what's revealed to be a she, when she like jumps off and onto the thing, does a roll, and then goes straight into like shooting at Beckett. So I think that goes CG, rolls into a real person, and then it's on a green screen set. I think that's how it worked.
And it's also really cool as she comes out of that roll. She already knows that, like, it's all about knowing each other's, knowing your enemy. So she pulls the shield.
Those shields up, and
I was like, really powerful moment.
The theme for them.
I think it was awesome.
It's like tribal fucking music. What the hell? It was so sick.
That was beautiful. And that whole just, and also I know that, I mean, I'm obviously a big fan of Metal Gear Solid, and my first reference when we saw Woody Harrelson's character was like Revolver Ocelot, you know. But I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I thought it was close to being too much, if you know what I mean. You know, when like something's like, what, you don't need to spin those guns, but I kind of like, he makes reference to that because he's like, "Oh, show me how you do wanker. It." He's a bit of a wanker, and like, he's a bit of a showman, but he also doesn't always, he's not always, it's like a reflex, I feel like, for the character. And he has that moment with Han where he's like, "Can you show me how to do that flip thing?" And he's like, "No, you don't need to do that. That's bullshit." And I think that's like, it just didn't take me over that edge, which I'm really happy about. It kind of the way it played into, he's just almost like a sleight of hand kind of magician, just kind of, that's just natural for him. He just flicks things around.
He's just a Wild West cowboy.
Yeah, and it was badass. Like, I thought,
great character.
It's a way, like, his character would have been very easily destroyed by like it was a delicate balance to have someone who Han Solo himself could almost look up to, like, because that's another thing I really liked about this film as well, is I feel like Han Solo was this kind of young, like we've talked about before, you know, this kind of immature character at the beginning of the film, and with the Han Solo we know has obviously picked little things up as he's gone along. And throughout this film, a lot of the characters he interacts with, it feels like he's taking a little bit from them, you know, in the way that like Han Solo does with the kind of Western element that he has with that gun. The like just the little tricks that he does, and the way he hacks things, and the way that like I feel like the way that the smuggling lifestyle is slowly being taught to him in a way that he didn't know before, and then we'll see that develop towards the end. But I could be completely wrong about that. That's just the feeling I got.
Yeah, I think the one thing, just about on that train sequence, the only thing that I think was a really missed opportunity with this film was Thandie Newton's character, her getting blown up on the bridge, and she was fucking sweet. I thought she would have made like a really good addition to just the whole universe. That if somehow she could have just been this smuggler that was out there, would have been cool. If LucasArts is not in some way thinking about a video game that involves her, you know, sort of like an Uncharted style game with her as a gangster out and stuff. I mean, how sweet would that be? She was a great character.
That was a comment I made when it was like, this would be an awesome video game on that train.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I was a bit bummed out that she died so, at least, if nothing else, like so early.
Yeah. I feel like there was a story to be told there that was kind of lost because of how quickly her character disappeared.
Yeah.
If you had like a full video game, or even just a 6-hour long video game, and you get to that, like the end of the video game is you on that train or on the bridge waiting for that train again, and you're trying to plant these things as quick as possible, and then the things start flying out and you try to shoot them, and then like you know what's coming, and that's the end of the video game. I think that would be kind of cool as well.
It'd be sweet.
Because she's got a story and she's got an interesting arc, I think.
Yeah, she was a really cool character. So that was kind of the only real like missed opportunity part in the film I found. But it's so much about it. The score was great. The visual effects were out of this world. I really was surprised by how well done the characters were, and as I said, you know, bits and pieces really gave me the shits, but as a whole, I mean, to be perfectly frank, no more than episode 1, 2, 3, or 6, or 7 or 8 have bits in it that piss me off. So does Return of the Jedi.
And so episode 7 and 8, you're talking about how they had moments where...
Yeah, they had moments that pissed me off. Not as much as cockatoos.
Or just Australian birds in general. Yeah, buddy, I'm talking about you.
That's going to keep going.
Yeah, all right, we'll just go with it. Just you need to finish that sentence.
Yeah, or even Return of the Jedi. You know, Return of the Jedi, that's like, for me, that whole first act drags like hell.
That's the one where he just, like, gets, what's it called, Leia and Han out of the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in Tatooine. Well, Leia went there to rescue Han, and then she gets enslaved. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought...
In the outfit, that's what she told Daisy Ridley. when Daisy Ridley was doing it, she said, you know, what was the advice I told you? She said, don't go through the crew like they're like wildfire, as in don't fuck everyone in the crew.
Of course, she freaking said that, yeah.
And do not let them put you in a costume like that.
Yeah, because then you'll be synonymous for that particular...
Yeah, I mean, now it's sort of like, then it was like, yeah, it's so racy, it's Leia. You know, they had, there's a story that Carrie Fisher used to tell about the costume designer was this guy. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to remember the context. I think he was a gay costume designer, and he would come up before every take, because she was naked under that. He would come up to her and go, just doing a tit check. And like make sure that her nipples weren't falling out, just it's like nowadays, you know, if you saw that in a film, you'd go, really, really,
yeah.
I get that she's a slave girl and that's what the outfit is and all that kind of stuff, but for fuck's sake,
you can do that tastefully nowadays.
Totally.
Well, actually, you could have done it back then, but now,
I mean, it was like 1982 when they made it, so you gotta think like. It's that's a long time ago, and but But yeah, that was one of the things she said to Daisy Ridley was like, just do not ever let them put you in a costume like that. And that's not even what Star Wars is anymore. So, you know, that's not going to happen. So, yes, Princess Leia went to help Han. And that's when she gets enslaved. She shows up in the bounty hunter outfit and she gets caught having taken him out of the carbonite. It's like she's speaking through her helmet. It's like, he says, I'm blind, I can't see. That will pass with time. And then he's like, who is that? She takes off the helmet. And she says, someone who loves you. And then Jabba was like,
Idiot.
What's that? I know that laugh. I can do the rest of you, the whole thing.
No, please don't.
But yeah, so she's not in that thing. She finishes Empire Strikes Back on the medical frigate with Luke Skywalker having his hand put back on, or a robotic hand being put on. So yeah, she didn't need to be rescued initially. It just turned out that way.
Well, anyway.
So semantically, you were wrong.
This is just a long-winded geek session about telling me off. I get it. I understand it. It's fine. So I think people... Well, I mean, I would never say people should watch this film. I think it's a fun ride. I think that's what my
you
kind of
watch a sweet heist film? Fucking watch it, man.
Yeah, right. You want to watch a
heist film?
You want to watch Firefly with more budget, like you were saying. I thought that was a great way of referring to that. Like, then watch this film. It was fun. It was exciting. It's what Star Wars is and always will be, and it should be. It's just a fun, exciting ride that isn't how terrible Marvel films are going. Because that's just like doing the opposite. Whilst with this stuff, it's still keeping that magic. Bar a few films.
Yeah, where Rogue One felt like a broken jigsaw to me, and those elements, by the way, I do feel them. I do love Episode 8, but there are parts of it that I just sort of feel, that felt hasty. So that's kind of... Whereas this film, to me, is sort of in terms of, we're going to tell a story from beginning to end, just a nice traditional film, there you go. Episode 7 feels like that to me, and this feels like that. You know, I hope they go a bit George Lucas on these films later down the track. I hope they go back and go, let's add this scene in. Let's pad this about. You know, let's do this. It's sad that Carrie Fisher died. They can't go and reshoot and get Chewie to hug her. They'll figure it out.
CGI.
No, they promised.
No. The promises can be broken.
They can for hugs.
Yeah, exactly, for hugs.
I know this is so dumb, like a tiny thing, but it is. That was such a moment. Like as soon as that happened, immediately I went, "Oh my god!" The next time Chewie sees Leia, and then he walks straight past her.
Yeah.
You go, what the fuck?
Because Chewie wanted Han. The real story is Chewie killed her.
J.J. Abrams spoke about it. He said like, no, because we needed Rey to connect with Leia, and so that we could sort of get her story in. And I'm like, so make the scene 40 seconds longer and have her hug Chewie, and then Chewie, you know, walks away sad, and when Chewie moves away, Rey is revealed behind him, and Leia is like, you just connected with this person, and yet another person has left you, you know? Anyway, this is what happens when
we start talking about Star Wars.
Bring up Star Wars.
Well, this is that perfect reference. That's what I was saying. This is going to be the kind of content, bar maybe potentially an extra person, that what it's going to be like listening to a series about Star Wars.
I can already tell you what the longest ones will be. Episode 1, 3, 6, 4, 8.
All right. You've heard it here, and then
I reckon
say 9.
There's so much to say about the prequels, it's ridiculous.
I feel like you would have eventually just gone through the whole number of everything.
I was kind of trying to order them a little bit.
Yeah, I felt that. So
I feel like, Anyway, sorry.
We'll see. No, don't be sorry. Freaking awesome. We'll see what happens. Like, stay tuned. If you like this kind of like particular type of style, then we're gonna do more of it regardless, because you know no one's told me not to. So bring it.
Yeah, definitely with Star Wars, but of course other things in between, which is kind of what we had talked about now.
Hell yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for potting with me.
Peace out.
Boy.
He says.
So that's the podcast for today. Stay tuned as there will be a new episode released every single Thursday. To keep up to date, don't forget to subscribe using Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. On this podcast, I want to give a special shout out to Josh Lumberg, who keeps coming back again and again. This podcast was produced and edited by me, Piotr Wasilewski, and the music was sourced from the Film Story website. Till next week, thanks for listening.